Just say
Welcome, everybody. I am doing a test run. This is Black Space Live. I am the Lamar Finley, aka Penny. We are going to have we're going to exercise that brain. We're going to challenge your thinking. You might be offended, but that's good because when you are offended, you are learning. When you're offended, you're learning. Can't learn if you're not offended. Can't be offended if you're not willing to learn.
So how do you feel about well, you can introduce me or whatever.
On the line, I got the producer of the show, Mr. Nate. Good evening, Nate.
Good evening, Penny. So happy everything is working out fine with you, with all the technical ins and outs. So how do you feel about the situation with the Supreme Court poised to overturn Roe versus Wade?
I think it's well overdue. I know that the argument tends to be my body, my body, my choice. But at the time in which Roe v. Wade was ruled, first of all, it's not they argue that it's the patriarchy, right? The evil patriarchy. But if I recall correctly, the Supreme Court was comprised of all men when that landmark decision was ruled upon. There was only one form of birth control too at that time. Well, two if you count the condom. Now there are several, and so the idea of abortions as birth control is barbaric. And I know that everyone wants to. They like to lean on the extremes, right? They like to lean on, the R word, They like to lean, I don't say that, I'm not going to say that word. They like to lean on grape situations. They like to lean on the extremes, right? But those are rare, right? They're not common. There are millions of abortions a year. And, statistically speaking, we're talking less than 1/100% of those abortions are the result of those rare instances in which I would probably be okay with abortions when they're medically necessary. The mother's life is in danger. She has been taken illegal advantage of.
Right.
But that's not the case with the majority. And then there have been studies by both pro-life and pro-choice groups that say most abortions aren't even the woman's first. Most abortions are number 2 or more for women, which means they're using abortion as birth control, which is, again, as I earlier stated, barbaric. And so I think it needs to go back to the states. And I would be totally fine with states putting strict restrictions on abortions. If the pushback is, oh my goodness, we're forcing women to be parents, tell them the same that we tell men, count them up.
Well, how do you feel about those who might say that, it's their body, it's their choice? And that's this is a question about their personal privacy.
So we preach equal treatment under the law, right? And equal protection under the law, right? So if a woman gets pregnant as a result of poor planning, which it's poor planning, right? With the exception of those exceptions, because I'm cool with abortions under those circumstances. However, if it's poor planning, I'm going to treat you just equal treatment under the law. Treat you just like I treat a man. Count them up.
Well, it sounds like you assume when you say poor planning that it's someone who is possibly not, have eloped or married. But in some cases, married women have been known to have abortions as well because maybe they have, too many offsprings as it is, and they may not be able to afford, an additional, mouth to feed. So what do you say about them in terms of poor planning? Because, they already have a large family and so forth.
So with married couples that have multiple children, and check your health insurance because most of them cover this. Even public health insurance cover this. Hubby can get snippity dippity. I know that women preach that for men as a first choice. It's a terrible first choice because, the SNP is, many doctors will tell you to treat that as permanent, right? But if you're a married man and you've had multiple kids and you don't want any more, SNP, most insurances will cover it. It's an easy outpatient procedure.
But okay, so now the onus would be on the man, but we're speaking strictly about abortion, though. It's and that would be on the side of the woman. So that's putting it on the man in that case.
Well, she can get, if she has multiple kids and a large family, doctors will tie her up. They'll tie her tubes.
Okay.
Now, I mean, the options, it's 2022, right? And we're still using abortion now as if there aren't other options. There's many other options, many options. And I think that abortions are barbaric. Again, we give women all of these outs of motherhood, right? They have many outs. They have safe haven laws. They have, women they can leave the baby at the hospital. They could drop the baby off at an orphanage for adoption. They could take it to the fire stations, libraries, police stations. Some states as late as age 14. And so, pre-birth you have pre-birth, post-conception you have the Plan B. And there's numerous types of birth control. There are pills, patches, implants, arm implants, intrauterine implants.
Some say that some say that some of these same politicians next on their menu may be birth control. Would that also be violating some of the woman's personal privacy?
So the slippery slope argument is a weak argument because, first of all, I don't think the pharmaceutical companies are going to let them take away birth control. And that there's no logic behind what would be the logic behind taking away birth control. You're not killing, quote unquote, killing babies with birth control. You're preventing conception with most birth control. So you can't make the argument. I mean, what is the conservative right going to say?
Well, these are the same people who also want to get rid of Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood is, as you are aware, for years they have made numerous efforts to defund Planned Parenthood, which also supports or aids women with birth control. So that would be their way of trying to deliver a crushing blow to Planned Parenthood.
Well, the current issue with Planned Parenthood is solely on abortions. In fact, when you talk to conservatives, they argue that the majority of the services that Planned Parenthood provide is abortion, right? Everything is centered to abortion. We don't want to fund abortion. We want to defund Planned Parenthood because they perform abortions. So you wouldn't have that. They're not pushing against birth control because liberals push back and say, or pro-choice folks push back and say, Planned Parenthood provides a lot of other services outside of abortions. In fact, liberals make a poor argument, which is it's a factual argument, but it's a poor one because liberals suck at making arguments that if you have more birth control options and you educate people on birth control, you have less abortions, which is the facts. It's facts. The more sex ed, and the more you teach people about birth control options, the less abortions that there are. There have been numerous studies in the affirmative to that fact.
Well, I think the reason why some are saying that birth control might be on the menu as well to take away from women is because there's a growing concern among certain groups of Americans that about the low birth rates, of a lot of children. So, abortion, I guess, as you were saying before, they feel that it's barbaric, and then um, birth control as well. That also would prevent more children from being born, or that contributes to the low birth rate thing, and that's one of the concerns. One of the biggest concerns, I think, with those same those same groups that are against um, abortions.
Well, the low birth.
They're trying to tackle the different they're trying to tackle the different things that are contributing to the low birth rates, even possibly after if they were to succeed with abortion, then go for birth control, and then after that, possibly marriage equality, especially same sex.
Well, again, that's a slippery slope argument that I disagree with. One of the issues that we have low birth rates, number one, we have low marriage rates. Number two, children are extraordinarily expensive, and a lot of women and men are, even married couples aren't having as many kids because it's extraordinarily expensive. I mean, in your average couple, they both have to work, which means, childcare is an issue. Childcare can cost as much as a mortgage, you know, for one kid, let alone two. And then once you make it past childcare, you're talking about, clothing and feeding and, educating a child until they're adulthood. That's expensive. What does it say? $250,000 from birth till college? That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money, and it's a heavy burden on the average family. So that's I believe is the biggest contributing factor to low birth rates, in this country. It's not abortions or any of that. I think that if you make abortions more difficult, most women, as currently, are going to just simply use other forms of birth control. I don't think that we're going to go back to the back alley. I think that, because think about it. Back in when Roe v. Wade was ruled, with what, the pill? Was the pill early then? The pill was new.
The pill came out 6 years prior to.
Right. So the pill was still new. We have so many other forms of birth control in addition to the pill now. There's easier forms of birth control. I get that some are harmful to women's body. I get that, but there's so many different types. You can kind of find one that fits you, and they're fairly inexpensive, and most are covered by insurances. And so the idea that we would get to that point, I disagree. And not every state is going to be restrictive. I'm pretty sure it's going to probably split down the middle, 25 and 25. You're going to have half the states that are going to be restrictive, and the other half are going to be easy. And we're a very mobile society, but I do think it'll cut down on unnecessary abortions. And I think that we would, increase on other, types of birth control, which we should. Abortion and birth control, I stand by this, is barbaric.
Okay. All right. Pretty sound argument there. So yeah, I think that's good enough for this test run. And,
all right.
I'm gonna just, after we hang up, I'm gonna go ahead and check our YouTube channel. I sent you the link to our YouTube channel.